Welcome to We Need to Talk, where we try to figure out the meaning of life and how to reduce dissatisfaction. In this episode, we're diving into the hero archetype, which is essentially an instinct within all human beings to go on an adventure and grow and face monsters and dragons. We'll be talking about our own experiences, which can give you some inspiration and understand how to set out on your own adventure in life. We'll discuss the hero cycle, which is a process by which you first get a call to an adventure to go out, and then you need to face some sort of dragon, and there's a death and rebirth process, and you come out on the other side as a transformed, stronger, powerful individual. So if you want to learn about that and how to figure out your own adventure, your own hero archetype, then listen to this entire episode. So enjoy the episode and don't forget to subscribe. Let's go.
Let's jump into the hero archetype, the hero story, or the hero journey. Now, apparently Jung actually believed that the hero story, the hero journey, was the narrative that characterized humanity. If you could put one stamp on humanity, it would be, he said it was basically hero journey, hero archetype, which is a big statement. Yeah. So I'll just start going over the basics of the hero archetype, and then we can just break it down more and more. So the hero story or the hero journey entails obviously a protagonist, a hero who ventures out into the unknown, into a threatening terrain, and faces some sort of monster, some sort of fear, and hopefully slays the fear, the monster, and then is rewarded with it either by like symbolically gold or the Virgin Mary, something like that. So like the story of Saint George is the classic example. You have a knight in a castle, and then a dragon comes along and threatens his people. So he goes out in his shining armor, confronts the dragon, slays the dragon, and then is rewarded with the Virgin Mary. Yep. And this is, you can look at this narrative from both directions. Firstly, that it's an external narrative, that you literally go out into the real world, or you go into the unconscious mind, which is the unexplored terrain. You're also where a lot of your fears rest, your repressed memories, for example, and you confront them and try to just confront them and work with them, basically, and then you get rewarded. So it's about self-discovery and manifesting your potential that is locked up in your DNA. It's just like, that's really what it is.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that distinction, because I didn't see that in the notes yet. And I think people might otherwise get the false idea that it's always this outward journey towards, well, as JP says, like towards the top of a hierarchy. And I think that is only half the story, where the other side is indeed an individual path one forges and confronting their own fears, which might not sound as adventurous, but still leads to like significant psyche development.
Yeah.
No.
I think, yeah. It's like, if you sort of evaluate or you compare, well, okay, a key characteristic here is that we're engaging in a fear. And I actually think the greatest fears really lie within you. I think that's the biggest dragon. It rests within you. And so that's really important to know, that it's also just as much as an external, it's also an inward journey.
Would you differentiate between a fear and simply unknown, or would you say it's fear of the unknown? Like if you make it practical, talking about last year, we can elaborate a bit. If you want to give an answer,
Mm-hmm.
that'd be nice.
Would you mean for my case last year, or?
Well, I mean, like do you think there's a big difference between it confronting your fear, confronting the unknown, or the fear of the unknown? Like what is it?
I think whenever you bring fear into the unknown into your prospect of the future, that's automatically connected with the fear. So you automatically fear the unknown. So that's one
Mm-hmm.
thing. Yet, I mean, I don't know, like,
Because it sounds like there's a difference between like if I want to overcome my fear of the unknown, I simply face the unknown. But if I want to overcome the unknown, I really have to go out into it and then like maneuver within. I think there might be a
yeah. So
difference in
you mean
that.
there's a difference between fearing literally the unknown in itself, or
Yeah.
engaging in the unknown and then figuring out what the fear is?
Yeah, because you can
Oh,
shy away from it once you know it. Because fearing the unknown is just not being able to identify, and therefore it is the unknown. And I think by overcoming the fear of unknown, you make the unknown like at least more known. But if you confront the unknown itself, that is where you transform it potentially into like something good, something orderly.
well, I think one would need to break down where the fear of the unknown comes from, because if it's like, I fear the unknown because I am afraid of losing my possessions in the future, because I'm in a lawsuit and I don't know how it's going to turn out, something, then it's more tangible. But if it's just, for example, my case, graduating university, don't know what to do next year. Okay, the fear of the unknown, but it's a lot more tangible. It's like, okay, fear of falling into a job that is not meaningful and being miserable.
Hmm.
That's more like, that's why I feared the unknown, because there is the potential for that.
Hmm. But then you've kind of identified it, and then it's like then you know what you're afraid of. And I think that's honestly better than not knowing because then you can start moving away from it.
Yeah. Well, I think that you can actually equate a fear to the unknown, because very often the fear, we fear something in an over exaggerated way. It's like we think, no, like we sort of construct this fear about something, but it's actually completely exaggerated. And it's exaggerated because we don't understand it, because it's the unknown.
Hmm.
So it's very much almost the same thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that argument rounded up.
Yeah. Cool. No, but that's thanks for asking that. It's good to clarify that. So I have some more notes here on what the hero sort of journey entails. So the hero faces the dragon, the fear, the unknown, and slays it, and then uses the remnants of the dragon to transform into a stronger version of the hero. And you will find the dragon resting in the darkest place where you least want to look. Now, this is really awesome, because Niek and I did this get out of your comfort zone workshop in January, where we ran into an ice cold lake and, did some cold exposure. And there was part of our presentation, we like combined it, workshop, presentation, and diving. There was a part of the presentation where we talked about seeking discomfort and sort of facing your fears. And I basically snatched this from Jordan Peterson. So he refers to the story of King Arthur and the Round Table and his Knights of the Round Table. And they were looking for the Holy Grail. And the Holy Grail is sort of a synonym for the most valuable thing. It's also connected to like the blood of Jesus, and it's a redemptive symbol. So, but it's just like super valuable. But they don't know what it is, the knights and King Arthur. But they somehow locate it, and they find, they think it's in a castle that's surrounded by a forest. And they decide the best way to proceed with the journey is to choose or enter the forest at the point that seems darkest to themselves. So the knights split up and pinpoint which part of the forest is darkest. And that is the so it's sort of the entrance to finding the most valuable thing. So the cave holds that treasure which you need most. Sorry, the darkest cave holds the treasure that you need most. It's like that sort of dynamic. Yep.
Do you think it's time to get more tangible with that? Or do you still have more
Yeah, let's do
conceptual?
it.
Because I really like the conceptual stories. I think for people to be able to relate,
Mm.
So I think our biggest example was indeed last year, where at the Erasmus University in Rotterdam, I mean, we were both like guided by our unconscious, by our interest, because we were grabbed by this idea of well, creating something bigger than ourselves, in the sense that we hoped to make like a positive impact for students and to facilitate them on their personal psyche development and their own growth. And we did that by creating an association with a team of, well, six in total. And while Henry and me, we were the leading guys when it came to making content, making workshops, and delivering them. But since nothing ever at the university we were at had been done before, anything was unknown. Like, we didn't have a name solidly yet. We didn't have any partnerships. The content was never delivered in the way we did it before. So any step we took was indeed like straight up into the unknown. And I think the first notion to make here is that, well, both of us, we were guided by our interest. This was not like a conscious decision where we instantly planned everything and like mm, intentionally decided to just do this. Like, I don't know where this interest came from, but the first step in that was like taking it serious and prioritizing it. And I think that is really cool, because then you fully engaged and embraced this hero's journey. So that was the first step. And I would say on the hero's journey we both experienced, there's a lot of ups and downs. But the main takeaway for me was that I've never felt so engaged on such a local adventure, because everything still happened in Rotterdam, but it still felt like a massive adventure. And I think that's a true misconception people might have when you talk about adventures versus the hero journey, where people think adventure has to be out there in the nature and traveling and just living up to this some sort of societal standard, where I truly felt like we marched through chaos in this adventure. And to me, that was really the what the hero's journey stands for last year.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice. I'd like to, I mean, like when you say, yeah, people think it's like in nature, really, you'll find the hero's journey by reflecting on what you're afraid of, period. And then doing whatever you're afraid of. Like, that's really it. Or, I mean, sort of in an oversimplest, in a sort of roughly speaking. um, but actually, okay, so a key part, just to make it even more tangible, a key part of last year was public speaking, because we did workshops. Now, about half a year before we created the association, I was walking through campus and I saw a poster that was sort of advertising public speaking workshops. So shout out to Matt from Lifeversity at Erasmus University. So I saw this poster and I thought public speaking would be good, but I'm too afraid. I'm not going to do it. And then a few months went by and a friend of mine shared that public speaking course at university on his Facebook. And I looked at it and I just, for the second time then, I realized something's drawing me into this. Like I want to do it, but I'm afraid I'm just going to do it. And actually that was right after I had attended your workshop, your sort of on public speaking. And because Niek already was doing courses before I did. And then I signed up to this public speaking workshop from this other guy, from Matt, and like just did for 8 weeks straight what I was afraid of. And it pushed me out of my comfort zone every single time. But I had that call to action. And a call to action is something is a key stage of the hero's journey, which I'll get to in a bit. But I had that sense like I should do this public speaking course, even though I'm terrified of it. And that, for example, is a call to action for a hero to go on that adventure. And that's then, I learned a lot in that public speaking course, and it inspired me to then continue and create this association with Niek and others, and then continue doing workshops for the whole year. But it was that moment, it was that like, I'm afraid of public speaking, but I feel obliged to do it. I have something's calling me to do this.
Mhm.
Yep.
Dude, That I didn't know this story yet, so that's really cool because I've seen you from like somewhere to start in presenting and like how you improved. So that's awesome. And I think for me to make it also practical, the two fears that I had was first like leading a team. I'd never led a team, and now it was like that is unknown, that is new, and the whole content like we just started from scratch. And then the second thing, which is very important, I think, is we had an idea we truly believed in and we wanted to get it out there. So whilst we like really admired and thought, okay, this is fundamental, students have to know this, by taking that out there, you like openly allow yourself to be judged because I mean you're kind of attached to what you make because we all still have a bit of ego. So I think that was a big ass unknown as well, where it's like, okay, we truly believe this, we want to get this out there. How is that gonna go?
Yeah, you. I
Yeah.
mean, when we created a workshop and presenting, it's literally the probably the most direct form of evaluation if
Mm-hmm.
people like the workshop or not, or especially how many people turn up. And we had a lot of, well, a fair amount of low turn up ratios, let's say. But dude, that's also really awesome because you just said we 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 sort of felt like we had this desire to build this association and give these workshops on self-development. Why, we don't know, but we were passionate about it. And that's also a kind of thing that it's a that with the hero archetype is your unconscious mind. Our unconscious mind was guiding us, and we didn't know like what it was doing, but there was something that we weren't aware of that was guiding us. That's an example then of the unconscious mind that is sort of nudging you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Awesome. Oh, talking about that, yeah. Do you think like someone just stumbles on that gut feeling or that interest? Like, how does one recognize when you become engaged in this hero journey? Because like you might not be able to notice it, but when you're in it, I think there will be a point where you have to consciously decide like to commit to it.
yes, I think in the hero journey, there's often a sort of a not a messenger, but some sort of figure that tries to draw you into the journey and convince you to come along. And very often in the beginning, there's this um, the hero actually tries to decline the offer, or because the hero is afraid, and they try to suppress this messenger, but the messenger always comes back. And I think the call to action, what triggers it, is really just something within you that arouses a sense of interest. It's like you think like it's super hard to say because it's quite like difficult to give an example of what it might be like, but it's somehow something within you thinks, I want to do that, I like that, or I should do that, it would help me.
Yeah.
Or do you have any other ideas?
Yeah, I do. But these are more like they're good signs, but they're portrayed to you in a negative way where I don't know if you've had this, but I know some people, especially like I have some sisters, they're able to watch some movies like over and over and over again. And it's usually The Notebook. I don't know the whole story, but I know it's a romance. And I think there's something in certain movies that well, most of them are the hero archetype. They could be other archetypes. But I think if you catch yourself just being able to binge watch one movie all over, that's a very clear sign of there's something more in this that I should act out. And the same goes for certain video games. Like I think we both watched one guy talking about this, and he said he could just play the game like all time, like because there was something so deeply fundamental about the character in the movie or in the video game that you actually want to live out. And the same can also go for books. Like as kids, most of us could have read Harry Potter, like all the books. Like it's pretty crazy how an 8-year-old, 10-year-old can read like an insane amount of books. There's like something that just grips you in that, and I think that's a very objective and clear sign of like go out there and do it, like make your own.
And in that, in the sense of Jungian psychology, as you pointed out before, that's a projection basically. It's your
Yes.
unconscious mind is allocating your focus to something, and it's as an attempt for you to consciously realize, why am I so interested in this thing? There must be something in it, and then to sort of deconstruct it and try and emulate that narrative or story that you're watching in the movie.
But that's the
Yeah.
scary part because it's both projection but also an escape. So you can go your whole life unlived because you projected it and you've escaped your own. So one has to become conscious of that. Otherwise, yeah, you really like. I have some friends, they would be addicted to playing zombies on Black Ops, like those kind of things. And it's like there's a very clear objective, and I can see why they would like it. And um, yeah, I can see that's pretty clear projection for me.
Mm. I would say like the projection is not is not necessarily a very efficient like method. Like whoever came up with that, like you could have done a better job, dude. Like because when I first heard about the projection, it made sense immediately, but it would have not come to my mind. Like I would not have come up with it myself. So, but then on the one hand, yeah, you pointed out, well, you the unconscious mind hopes you watch the movie and notice that you're obsessed with it and try to figure out why, and it's try to sort of copy that the movie, whatever. Yet you might, the thing with the call to action is a lot of people don't listen to it. There's so many people, because the hero archetype is in with all is within all humans, yet it looks like a lot of humans don't act it out necessarily. And what's stopping them from doing it? And maybe people just get lost in, let's say, the projections. But I don't know why really.
I think there is a part of that that ties in with the shadow side, but I don't know if we can already go to that part. Because I think there's more to discuss on the hero journey.
Okay. Yeah,
'Cause it,
let's just continue with the hero journey and then. Mm,
poor Jung.
pardon?
It was like, oh, that's it.
Okay, so I just sort of summarized. So the hero journey is actually a cycle, and this is where it was pretty cool. It's basically a reiterative process that is never ending and repeats itself. And each human sort of has the potential to act out the journey over and over and over again. So it's a cycle. And I might actually add the cycle right now,
What?
later on. So it first starts with the call to adventure. So the hero encounters some sort of indication that the hero should go on an adventure. And it's often in stories, apparently it's symbolized as like an animal, which represents the gut feeling or the intuition of the hero, but it's all often gets ignored then, and then it returns later. So here's a quote by Joseph Campbell, who really dove into the hero archetype. He said, often in actual life, and not infrequently in the myths and popular tales, we encounter the dull case of the call unanswered, for it is always possible to turn the ear to other interests. Refusal of the summons converts the adventure into its negative, walled in boredom, hard work, or culture. The subject loses the power of significant affirmative action and becomes a victim to be saved. So here, Joseph Campbell's referring to that there's always the possibility to ignore the call to action, to call to adventure over and over and over again. And I watched a video where it said something like the call to action entails going against the norm. And so you have one opportunity to go on an authentic adventure, or you have the opportunity to stick to the crowd and be a sheep, sort of something like that. And of course, the sheep-like behavior is very enticing, and that's why so many people don't go on the adventure then. Yep.
And the important aspect is he said you can ignore it and adhere to other interests, which means the call to action is a form of interest. So if you notice yourself getting highly interested in something, that is a sign.
Mm. And it's also, it would have to be coupled between with an interest and fear, because like you said, it's an other interests. If it's like the adventure is an interest that you're afraid of, whereas the other interests which you can sort of numb yourself with are just interests and you're not afraid of them, sort of like that. And I actually, this is, I want to give an example of where I felt a call to action. So, oh, this is perfect, dude. Oh, awesome. So, very often the call to action is actually, it's not really, it's an internal thing. It's nothing comes to you really from the outside. Nobody comes to you really, but it's something within you that sort of jumps up. And my example is when I was in my relationship earlier on in March this year, I had a conversation with a guy and we were discussing whether one would give up a relationship for a career opportunity in your 20s, or whether you would stick to the relationship and give up the career opportunity. Do you know what I mean? Would you sacrifice a career for a relationship, or would you sacrifice the relationship for the career? And we sort of concluded it's probably safer to give up the relationship and then go on this adventure, this career opportunity, this unknown endeavor. And within a few hours after that conversation, I'd broken up with my girlfriend. in tears, crying my soul out. And that was the night before we hung out then with the team, with the association team, and just, were vibing, because I was in a really bad state. So I had basically, within me, this is what it was. I got this sudden panic that I needed to leave Rotterdam. So we were studying in Rotterdam, and I needed to go on a new adventure because I had figured out Rotterdam and the life at university. I felt this sudden kick within me, like, Henry, you need to get out of here. You need to move on. And I was terrified of it. And I could not help. I was going to go to a salsa party with my girlfriend. And on the, 20 meters before the door of the salsa club, I was like, I need to tell you something. Then I said, I talked to a guy today and I feel like I need to leave Rotterdam. And then we went to the Starbucks at Central Station, and I just started crying eventually. And it was really bad because I didn't want to say goodbye, but I felt like I needed to. And I was terrified. And the thing was, I wasn't necessarily crying because I loved my girlfriend and was saying goodbye to her, but because I was terrified of what was to come, because I had no clue what was going to happen if I leave Rotterdam, if I'm going to be in like a miserable job that I hate, or where I'm going to end up. Terrified. I cried my heart out. It was the worst emotional pain I've ever felt in my life. I could not sleep that night. My chest was just sort of like imploding. It was really, really painful. And that was that call to action. And like, I've never told this guy who I had the conversation with, but literally suddenly something was unlocked within me. This thought of like needing to leave Rotterdam, which I had suppressed. And you were trying to help me figure out what to do next year and like come up with a plan, but I was not really taking any self-initiative for months because I didn't want to face what was coming. And then suddenly this conversation unlocked this thought and just took unconscious control of me. I could not help but tell my girlfriend, and just had to sort of let it manifest itself. Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah. That was intense, really intense, and very confusing because I thought it was my love for my girlfriend, that I was like saying goodbye to her, but it was not. It was just fear of what was going to come after university.
Right. I have like
Anyway, yeah,
similar with my family. Like how close I am with my family.
yeah.
I have quite an amazing siblings and parents, and I had a moment where a song like unlocked my unconscious. I was listening to a song. It's called "Haley" by Eminem, and it's the only song where he sings. Like the guy only raps, and I mean he can't really sing, whatever. But the thing was in the past like 4 years that I lived in Rotterdam, I have sometimes made sacrifices for my study, which I don't think they lived up or they justified me not seeing my family, because sometimes I would just procrastinate and then I had to do research and I couldn't go on vacation with my family. And prior to leaving Zurich, I was like, it just suddenly hit me that this is going to be the final time I can really see my family for quite the time being. And then I randomly listened to the song for the first time, and I just broke down in tears because the song is about how he missed his own daughter, and I don't have a daughter, but my smallest sister, she really feels like she's like mine as a sister, and like no one can touch her or whatever, and just really blew in me, like just hit me so hard that I'm not gonna be able to see her anymore. But at the same time, I felt a bit relieved in the sense that I know this me going to Zurich is gonna be the first hero journey that really justifies me not seeing my family. So I was like very conflicted. I was like,
Yeah. I think you hit the head on the nail. The fear of the adventure, or the thing
mm-hmm,
that is the motivation to ignore the adventure, is the fear of letting go of what you know, or letting go of of your social group, of your family, of the mapped out terrain of,
yeah,
your status quo, the life right now. It's the fear of saying goodbye to that. That's
yeah.
terrifying. Yeah.
But it has led to a lot of development, though. That is key. Once you've made the decision, you go fully in for it. Yeah, you will grow like rapidly, almost exponentially for quite a time.
Mm.
That is what makes it worth it eventually.
Mm.
But you
And I
don't know
think,
if you don't do.
right, you'll never know what you could ever be. If you never try, you'll never see.
Man.
Yeah, I think, dude, I honestly think there's some sort of a linear relation, or not linear, but a proportional relationship to the size of the fear and the size of the reward. The greater the fear, the greater the
Mm-hmm.
reward, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But
I like that.
with your sister, I think what it has to do with is, like, it's what you spoke about in the beginning of growing up. When you th- the hero adventure is saying goodbye to your community, basically, and it also entails that taking responsibility then for yourself, because you're saying goodbye to the protection of the community, of your family and stuff. And that's why I think it's quite frightening also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Are
Hmm.
we still somewhere in the cycle?
Yeah, we're in the cycle. And the next step is encountering what's called the threshold guardian. And this figure represents your shadow, actually. It's like a frightening, ugly figure. But it's the first sort of first figure you encounter on the adventure into the unknown, into the unconscious, let's say. Yeah. And I don't know quite how this would relate to an external adventure. I think it's just the idea is that you immediately face something you're afraid of, or or something that's makes you really uncomfortable. And I think internally it'd be your shadow archetype, which we'll talk about in a second, but externally it would just be the first challenge, which is, of course, you're not used to the challenge, so it's the most frightening one. Yeah, but
But
that's
is
sort of
it
the next.
something that would like easily get you back with in the comfort zone? It,
I think it might. Yeah.
hmm,
Yes. But all the long, whilst you're on this adventure, you are accompanied by a mentor, some sort of wise, like the old wizard archetype, or the kind of like a fairy sort of. And you know, in stories, in movies, examples would be like uh oh
Pinocchio.
yeah, like Jiminy Cricket in Pinocchio. Then you'd have Morpheus in The Matrix. Then in Star Wars, you'd have Obi-Wan Kenobi, and also Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. So that those are the ones. It's the one guiding you. Yep.
Dumbledore.
I thought about it, but because Dumbledore, he guides Harry Potter, but isn't he kind of absent also? Like he's quite detached from Harry, isn't he?
Well, perhaps that makes it part of it,
Hmm.
because then you keep like an objective view. Because I mean, if you're detached, it also means you can't fully rely on it, which means you're on your own.
Yeah, that's true. But isn't there somebody else in Harry Potter? Like I was thinking of, it's not what's this Hagrid. It's not Hagrid because I'm thinking
Hmm.
who calls for Harry in the beginning? You know what? Who's drawing Harry in? It's not Dumbledore. I think it's Hagrid. No, or some no. Hagrid's just the mess. Ooh, he does go to collect Harry in the beginning, but I don't know.
Digress. I don't know too well.
Yeah, I would need to rewatch it. Okay, so then this is where it gets really interesting now. And sort of the hero journey gets increasingly more difficult. This is the thing, like it's kind of like a continuous battle with challenges, and they incrementally the difficulty in the challenge grows with your strength. And when you slay, let's say, the checkpoint dragon, you absorb its energy and you like level up, but it's always, you know,
Yes.
it always adapts to your strength. It's like a video game, you know, when you level up, the monsters also level up, they get more tricky, you know. That's sort of like the trajectory of the hero journey. So the next stage is like the death and rebirth stage. This is where sort of symbolized often as the hero entering the belly of the beast, or a cave, or some sort of yeah. and
Is it
and
like
then
a
and
crisis?
yes, yep. And but then the hero kind of dies, or is like almost dies, and then is reborn. And I've thought about this a lot, or a fair amount. I think what the death and rebirth process does is it kind of burns off the dead wood within you. It kind of, it needs, in order to grow and let go of the old, some really powerful process has to just lacerate you, like absolutely smash you until you're almost dead, in order to crack, like to break off the old version of you. And that's why you need to almost die.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, like, dude,
It's
why do we need to
symbolically.
die? Like, why does it have to be like this, man?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
that's a
it's to cure your weakest weaknesses, right?
yeah.
Like this might be a silly example, but I think my biking journey, I biked from Rotterdam to Zurich. For me, that was a massive adventure. I'd never done such a thing, and then I lost uh, my wallet, like very close to the end, like last 2 days, and that's where like a part of me has to die. And that this might sound weird, but the part of me that is very slumpy and would like lose stuff, which is very uncautious, needs to die for those kind of things, which can be very serious. Like if you have that in the desert, like any other random place where it's very threatening, has to die, and you face like your own inadequacies. So it doesn't have to be an external monster; it can be internal inadequacy, which you then face and have to transform for you to essentially be better off.
Yeah.
Does that
I
make
think that's,
sense?
dude, that's a nice that's pretty cool how you tied that in. You needed to push yourself into a really uncomfortable situation or just a bad situation in order for it to hit you so hard that you are now the master of it. Like it kind of, it confronted you and wanted to duel you and made you fight, but then you like learned from it and now you understand that thing that was trying to fight you. Ugh, I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Something like that.
No, it mean makes sense, but this was just a small example. But I can see how that plays out in like on a bigger challenge or adventure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. And
Wait,
then
one last question. Do you think it can represent ego death, or do you think it's just the symbolic death?
I think an ego death would definitely be part of it because the ego is the mirror of the shadow, which is the unconscious. And if you kill the ego, then the shadow can come up because
Mm-hmm.
the shadow sits underneath the ego. Like not in Jungian terms, the ego, but just like your,
Yeah.
your the protector of your insecurities. It's your it's the thing you identify with, sort of. And the shadow sits underneath that because it entails all the things that you don't want to identify with. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if the ego dies, then the shadow can crawl back up, you know? It's something like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Because there's two ways. So, okay, I don't want to get into the shadow too much yet, but when we start to build the ego when we're young, the identity, there's part of who we are naturally that does not fit into the identity. There's things that we don't like about ourselves and we don't want to include in the identity, in the ego. And those things get thrown into the shadow. It's into the unconscious, the repressed side. And when the ego dies or when the ego decreases, so does the size of the shadow, let's say. And then the traits that were in the shadow before can now crawl back up and be part of your personality. And that's why it's connected to an ego. That's why it's connected to the hero adventure and engaging in the unconscious, because the shadow is the unconscious. And then you face, when the ego dies, it's a process of individuation, of integrating the unconscious, basically an ego death, I would say.
Mhm. Yes. So conclusion that can be part of the death we're talking about.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That's like the before final stage, right?
Yeah. The final stage is I mean, I don't know if this is the real name, but the video I watched, which is from Academy of Ideas, super good channel on YouTube. They called it the ultimate boon. It's like the ultimate reward, kind of, I think, or benefit. It's also called unrealized potential. So here, the hero must bring his
Mm-hmm.
new strength or her new strength and potential into the world and manifest it in real life. And if the hero does not manifest it in the real life, then they have to repeat the whole process again, which sucks. But it's basically the hero dies and is reborn, learns or is supposed to learn from the whole process, and then actually integrate the wisdom and the learning into the real life behavior of the hero, like into the actual personality, and deliver it to society and help it, apply the wisdom learned into real life. That's what it is, basically.
Yes.
Yep. But I have
Yes.
a quote here. So it's also a quote from Joseph Campbell again. It goes, "What I think is that a good life is one hero journey after another. Over and over again, you are called to the realm of adventure. You are called to new horizons. Each time there is the same problem. do I dare? And then if you do dare, the dangers are there and the help also in the fulfillment or the fiasco. There's always the possibility of a fiasco, but there's always the possibility of bliss. So that it's just basically a heavy risk reward kind of endeavor. High risk, high reward. But if you don't do it, you have basically negative. Yeah. It's kind of like high risk, high reward. But if you don't engage in that opportunity, you have the downsides of that high risk anyway. Just a life of pain, basically.
Yeah.
That's sort of, those are the options.
Mm-hmm. I really like that quote.
Yeah.
Let's like talk briefly about our next personal adventures in that case.
Sure.
I think that'd be cool because prior to moving to Zurich, which happened like beginning of August, I thought we've had a very cool year with Extraordinary Life in Rotterdam. I'm gonna take some time off and just see to what extent I actually like it, like debrief and just figure out if it's actually something I want. And then I made the decision not to do that. And when I arrived here, like after 2 weeks, I was like just drawn in by the idea of creating a community again. I was like, it is indeed something autonomous leading me. Like I just can't not do it. It's very weird. So this is my second conscious hero journey. Once again, it's just setting up a new branch here in Zurich.
Dope. So you're building a new community, association, team.
Yes.
In a new place with new people.
Yeah. But I think the funny part is I try to ignore it, but it just can't. Like I told to Tom, the guy who eventually or initially set up EL, like, oh, I'm not gonna do it. I want to take some time for myself. And that thought lasted like 2 weeks, and then I was like, no, this just calls me again. Like, this is good. Let's do this.
Yeah. Now, one thing where I really quickly put my lights on. One thing we need to discuss here, though, what's been coming to my. Don't look there, mate. What came to my mind is, what if the thing guiding us is actually insecurity and ego?